In this video, we're going to be looking at Program Learning Outcomes and Program Learning Outcome Assessment in Nuventive. To begin, you need to select your program from the Program Center menu bar. You can use the caret, or you can scroll down by just selecting the bar. Once you're in your program that you'd like to add PLOs to or do PLO assessment, you will see the home page. Once you're on the home page, select the hamburger menu on the left. Select Program Assessment by either clicking on Program Assessment or selecting the caret on the right, and then select Program Assessment subtopic. The main page for PLOs will open, and you will see all the PLOs that are currently active for your program. The PLOs in Nuventive are the official PLOs from the course catalog. If you need to update the PLOs, please check with your department chair, your dean, and the VPI's office on how to update PLOs in the college catalog. On this main page, you can see some of the features that you've seen in other screens in Nuventive. You can search PLOs by a keyword. You can view by status, active or inactive. You can view by planned assessment cycle, and you can view by planned assessment years. The other feature is you'll see over here on the right, it will tell you how many PLOs you have. If you're on PLO, there are 3 of 3 PLOs. You won't be adding any PLOs at this time. You'll just be updating the current PLOs that you have. You can do that by either double-clicking the card or by selecting the ellipsis on the right and select Open. The very first thing you need to do is go through and review the PLO and add some information. When the PLOs were imported from TaskStream, they were all given just the name PLO number 1 or number 2 or number 3. They weren't given a text description. What you'll need to do is, after the PLO number, is to identify, based on the description down here, a brief name for that PLO. You can leave the PLO number and just add a brief 1 or 2, 3-word description for that PLO. And that's important because for reports, you will see this information show. So you need to have some way to identify that that is the PLO that you're looking at. So you want it to be clear, but it doesn't need to be lengthy. This particular field has asterisks. Anytime you see an asterisk, those are required fields, meaning that you won't be able to save this card unless these required fields are completed. The next field, after you give it a brief name, is a description. And this is also already here from the college catalog. So all you need to do really is update the short name for these two. The next thing is the outcome status. All the outcomes that are currently in the catalog were marked as active. If for some reason it's marked inactive and it is a current PLO, then please just correct it to active. All PLOs need to be assessed at least once during a cycle. And so this is the cycle that we are in, which is 21-24. That is the planned assessment cycle. Next year, or the next cycle, you'll be able to select 24-27. But we're currently in the 21-24 cycle. And that also should already be updated. If it's not, then please select 21-24. The next field is something that you are required to do, and that is, when do you plan to assess this particular PLO? In this case, this is his PLO number 1, and we're going to assess this in 2 different years. So we're going to assess it in 22-23 and also in 23-24. It doesn't matter which semester you're assessing it in. These are academic years. This is a multi-select field. If I wanted to assess it in every year in this particular cycle, we could do that as well. Or I could just select 1. And then once I have the planned assessment year selected, I want to select Save. Now that I have my PLO brief name added, I've looked at my planned assessment cycle, I've decided what year I'm going to assess it, I need to come up with a measure. How am I going to measure this particular program learning outcome? So we're going to go to the Measure tab. And in this case, this particular PLO historical knowledge has 1 measure. And so this is what all these are called cards. I can add a measure if I want, or I can open the existing measure. If you don't have measures in there, you'll need to add at least one measure for all program learning outcomes. So I'm going to select open, and then the measure card will open. In this case, is the measure active? Because you might have a measure and then change it maybe a year from now, and then that measure would become inactive and you would have a new one. The next field is what type of measure is this? And this is a pull down, and we've given you various types of measures that you can select from. In this case, I said indirect other, and then you want to give a description of what that measure is, and then you want to give it a target, and then you would give more detail here than what I have on this one, but you would assign a target and then the persons or people responsible for administering that measure or making sure that PLO is measured. And then you have a couple of fields down here. If you would like to add an attachment, you can select the plus, and then you can either pull one from the document library within Nuventive or an attachment from your computer. It's very similar to attaching documents to an email, very simple. You might want to attach a copy of a measure. If, for example, there was an essay or exam that would measure this particular PLO, you might want to attach that for the record. While you're on this page and you're looking at the measure, if you wanted to see all the information about this particular PLO, you can select Show Details, and it will give you all the information about that PLO. Or you can hide it and you'll just see up here at the top. Okay? All right, so once we have established a measure, we've established a target, we've established the people that are responsible, we've given a detailed description. I'm just going to add something here just so that I can save it, because I've already saved this once before. I'm going to select Save, and then I'm going to select Close. So now I have my PLO, which should already be there. I've added a measure. And the next thing is to map that PLO. And so I'm going to select the Mapping tab. So PLOs are mapped to institutional learning outcomes and also to curriculum mapping. I'm going to come back in a different video and talk to you about curriculum mapping. So in this case, we're going to map PLOs to ISLOs. So I have here for this particular PLO, I've selected 3 different ISLOs that PLO applies to. Once I have that, I can click Save, and I can click Close. If I want to come back to this PLO, I can open it again and say I'm, next year or the end of this cycle, I have findings. I can select the Findings tab. And it says there's no findings yet, but if I want to enter some findings, I can select the plus, and then I can enter all my findings. The findings date always defaults to the current date, but you can always go back and pick a different date if you need to. The assessment year, if I did this next academic year, I would select that. My target, did I meet it or not meet it? And then a summary of my findings. This is a text field, so you would give a summary of your analysis, any discussions that you had about it, any changes or improvements that you made either to the assessment. And then if you could also insert tables and graphs here. Once you click in this text box, it will open up basically an edit bar similar to a Word document that allows you to add some text or add tables and graphs. And then again, you can add a document if you'd like. Maybe you have some information from the PRED that you want to attach here, some documentation that you pulled out about courses or course success rates or completion rates or outcomes, things like that you want to use that would support this PLO assessment. You could do that there. And then once you have your results, you need to develop an action plan. So all PLOs, you have the PLO, you have the measure, you're going to map it to an ISLO, you're going to add the findings, and then once you add the findings, you're going to establish an action plan. And so you would add your action plan date, what is the action plan? And then at some point in time, probably at the end of the year or the next year, you're going to come back and get a status update on that action plan. So did I complete my action plan? Did I not start it? Or is it still in progress? And then some comments about the status. So as soon as you add your findings, you need to come up with action plan. And then you'd work on the action plan for some period of time. And then you'd come back and give a status update. And then you're going to select close. I obviously don't want to save that. I can go back and close again, and it'll take me to the main page for PLOs. And I can do the same thing with the second PLO or the third PLO, however many PLOs you might have. So when you first enter Nuventive and you're in the PLO workspace, please make sure that you go through each PLO, add a brief description, change it from just PLO number 1 to a short name, and then the description here should match the description that's in the college catalog. Update the status, they should be active. Update the planned assessment cycle, it should say 21-24, and then update the planned assessment years for all your PLOs. And that's it. Thank you.